Matt Gaetz is tired of FISA, and so are we. Tired of the intelligence agencies utilizing the courts to spy on Americans without warrants in violation of our civil rights. But now we're asking, is anything going to be done about this? We know Christopher Wray is really defending this. The intelligence agencies do not want to lose this power, but Gaetz is now moving to have the power sunset, for it to go away, just expire, go into that good night, and leave us all to our freedom. So he filed a resolution. Byron Donalds is also on this case. I think he's going to be joining some sort of effort to sunset the FISA powers. But Gaetz posted this on Twitter. We'll take a look at his resolution and see exactly what it says before we hear what Byron Donalds has to say. But Gaetz is taking action. He says, breaking. Today, I filed a resolution to end illegal FISA surveillance of American citizens. He says the persistent abuse of Section 702 of FISA underscores the disturbing trend of our federal government being weaponized against its people. The blatant misuse of warrantless surveillance powers targeting American communication should not be accepted or reauthorized. And this is what they were doing, right? The feds would go and they would be listening to phone calls and they'd say, oh, well, this is dangerous, national security. And then they'd go to the secret court and the secret court would say, well, what's happening here? And then the FBI would basically make up a bunch of stuff and then the courts would rubber stamp their filings and then they'd get access to all of the communication. And it wasn't through a warrant process per se. This was a whole different process. It was a FISA process where they were able to jump over the constitutional protections that prevent this from happening. So Gaetz says we must hold and uphold national security without sacrificing the constitutional rights of our fellow Americans. He says, thank you for all of the people who are co-sponsoring this critical piece of resolution. And we know some of the names here. Marjorie Taylor Greene's on the list. Gosar from Arizona, shout out. We've got Eli Crane. He's also from Arizona. We've got Rep. Rosendale, who is from Montana. And we know Thomas Massey out from Kentucky. So all these people are on the story. Fox News has the report, says they want the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act to officially expire in 2023. And we'd love to see that happen. So this is what Matt Gaetz said. He submitted the resolution. It is saying that under the law, this is set to expire. It has already been extended until the end of this year. So December 31st, 2023. And I'm very curious if they're going to hold the line on this one. It's automatically set to expire December 31st, 2023. All Congress has to do is just basically not approve it. Whereas absent congressional action, Section 702 authorities will sunset at the end of the year. And we've covered other stories here where we've seen FBI agents come in front of Congress and other government DOJ attorneys and other bureaucrats. We need this. We're all going to die if we can't go get secret wiretapping authorities to go spy on Americans. So Congress just does nothing. It's going to expire. Great news. The intelligence community, they say Matt Gaetz says, has not been forthright about its use of Section 702 authorities over the past 15 years that they've been using this. Both houses of Congress have repeatedly sought to exercise their constitutional Article 1 authority to conduct oversight of the executive branch and the use of this power. And not only the executive branch, but all of the some components of it. The DOJ, the FBI, has repeatedly and over multiple Congresses failed to produce lawfully requested documents and witnesses to both houses of Congress. We know that the balance of power has changed hands many times over those last 15 years, but they just think that they are above oversight and they can do whatever they want. They say information Congress has related to Section 702 authorities is often obtained from news reports, whistleblower materials, and even produced when often heavily redacted. When they actually get them from the feds, highly redacted. You guys can't see it, you're just Congress. They say that the data Congress has on the 702 practices. So when we ask, how do you do this? How do you file for this? And what's this form look like? What are the safeguards? What are the checks and balances to make sure that this is not turning into a problem? The data that we have on how this works is incomplete, in part because the DOJ itself has been failing for 21 months to comply with the plain language of the law. The FISA Authorization Act mandates that the agency keep account of the number of 702 queries that the United States has conducted until two federal courts held that they were required to do so. Failing to comply, a court tells them to do it. But Congress is aware, Matt Gaetz writes, of multiple abuses of Section 702 data and their collection process through released court decisions and aggregated data, which itself is an adequate basis to sunset the program. In other words, this alone, the abuses that we've seen, that we've got through just the courts and the aggregated data, the data that we're allowed to find on our own, not even the stuff that you're not giving us, the stuff that we're able to glean just from the outside is enough to sunset the entire program. The National Security Agency, they say, acquires more than 250,000, off by a couple zeros there, more than 250 million internet internet communications every year pursuant to this section 702, 250 million a year. Whereas the FBI has conducted these inquiries using 702 power with callous disregard for the privacy rights of Americans, as referenced in a surveillance report on an opinion that came out in April of 2022. The report said that by conducting queries, they used 6,800 social security numbers. They ran a batch query in June 2020 of unminimized FISA information. They used identifiers of 133 individuals arrested in connection with civil unrest between May and June of 2020. That's the summer of love. So where are the liberals screaming from the rooftops? I wonder if these people had their privacy rights violated without any specific connections to known terrorist activity, known to those who conducted the queries, just searching for people. Were these FBI agents searching for the left-wingers, or were these FBI agents looking for right-wingers? That time frame was George Floyd era. By conducting a batch query of over 19,000 documents, 19,000 donors to a congressional campaign, batch query for 19,000 donors. They just searched for 19,000 donors to a congressional campaign. Could you imagine? You're just an average American donating to Congress. Your name is in an FBI batch query. By regularly queried unminimized FISA information, using identifiers of individuals listed in local police reports, including victims, family members, witnesses, and suspects with no evidence of criminal activity. Just bored FBI agents just Googling around. They conducted batch queries consisting of 23,000 queries using presumed United States person query terms, running those queries against unminimized Section 702 information, and they conducted in excess of 278,000 non-compliant queries of raw FISA acquired information. The court opinion concluded from the FISA court. The court itself said, across the FBI, the government has reported queries of raw FISA acquired information as part of a routine baseline check without a specific factual basis to believe it was likely to return evidence of a crime. So you're supposed to have a good faith basis, probable cause, reasonable suspicion, right? Some standard that we talk about here to make sure that you're just not operating haphazardly. You're not operating in a way that could be compromised. You should have a purpose behind the search. You're not just searching for your ex-girlfriends or something. But these people were just on a hunch, just poking around. I wonder what this person's doing. Wonder what this person's doing. Let's look at 20,000 people who donated to a Congress. Whereas the current oversight work of this Congress does evidence that this pattern of abuses, in particular by the FBI, are not incidental. These are not minor mistakes. This is part of a pattern of behavior. It warrants the sunset of this entire provision. Even the FISA court Judge Boasberg, in 2018, he wrote in his opinion that he observed a large number of queries and a misunderstanding of the querying standard or an indifference toward it. So you can't even identify the standard that they're supposed to reach before they conduct these searches. You know, before you conduct an arrest or issue a warrant, right, you got to have probable cause, or before you stop somebody, reasonable suspicion, right? We have these different standards, but they're just searching willy-nilly, whatever they want. Whereas numerous American intelligence, law enforcement, and civil liberties groups have expressed serious concern over this provision, there is no indication that traditional FISA authorizations requiring a warrant are not up to the task of protecting American civil liberties. Traditional FISA authorities are more protective of American civil liberties, including by requiring a close involvement of the judges, by requiring approval of both attorney general and a judge, by requiring the attestation of ordinary methods of information collection would not work, and by having time limits on surveillance. These might all be protections that could be incorporated, but no government component has produced better outcomes than the traditional FISA. So therefore, Matt Gaetz says now it's time that it's the sense of the House of Representatives that the authorities under Section 702 should be allowed to expire at the end of this calendar year. And I think this would be a good development, and it would be a major hint to the FBI and these intelligence agencies that they are no longer going to be invested with completely unbridled power, and Congress would be clawing back one of their tools that they claim is so very critical to their livelihood. FBI will not be happy if they lose this power because they've been using and abusing it for years. And so they're going to put up a big fight. We'll see what Congress does with it. Thank you for subscribing as we continue to cover this FBI misconduct and more. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.